Welcome to Wally's Workshop. And here they are, television's home repair couple, Natalie and Wally Bruner.
Welcome to Wally's Workshop. And, of course, as you say, and as we say every time, it doesn't look much like a workshop, but really and truly it is. This is a recreation of the library in our home. And the way we got into doing so many things in the workshop is by reading books about it. Right, Natalie?
Oh, that's right, Wally.
Remember the time we put in the slate floor in the old house up in New York?
I could never, ever forget that.
Well, we started out by reading a book on how to do it. And then eventually, we went out and bought the slate and started in the hall. And let me tell you, the floor in that hall was so bad, you could look right through the cracks in the floor down into the basement.
I forgot.
Right.
Oh, yes, that was a mess.
We wanted a slate floor in the side hall, an entrance hall. Now, it was a rather ambitious undertaking because we had, about 160 square feet, I think.
Yeah, but when you're ignorant, I think you undertake an awful lot that you wouldn't if you had a little knowledge.
Well, we were interested in doing big things, you know, so off we went. I went down and bought several boxes of slate and some underlayment board, and first put the underlayment board down over the hall, and then began to install the slate. And everything went beautifully until we grouted the slate and let the grout stand on the slate 24 hours before we tried to wipe it off.
And it wouldn't come off.
And it wouldn't come off. Everything stuck to the surface of the slate. So for the next 2 weeks, we were with muriatic acid and steel wool trying to remove the excess grout.
I'm surprised we didn't asphyxiate ourselves from the fumes.
Well, you know, we had a lot of bad advice on how to do this.
That's right.
Some of it was from the tile dealers where we bought the slate, and
I don't think
some of
the
the
tile
books
dealers had ever put down a slate
I don't
floor.
think they had either. And some of the books were not as clear about it as they should have been. So what we think, you can learn a lot by reading a book on how to install a slate floor. You can get some of the basics in it. But there's no substitute for seeing it done.
Yes.
And that's what we're going to be doing today.
And doing it yourself.
And doing it yourself. But see it done first and then try it. So we're going to show you today how you can have a slate floor in your home or a small slate place, you know, in the foyer where you first step in the door. But slate is beautiful when you use the real stone. And there's nothing, I don't think any of the artificial products come up.
And it's not that expensive. And it's so durable, you can have it for a lifetime or more.
Right. So, if you're interested in putting a little bit of slate in your home, why don't you stay with us? And we'll be back to show you how to do it right after this word. Now, the tools required to put in slate are really quite simple arrangement. You need a power saw, similar to this one right here. And in any electric power saw, you buy a blade like this one. Now, this is a special stone-cutting blade, and as you can see, it has no teeth. It's simply a round, abrasive-type material that'll wear itself right through stone or slate. They use this for cutting bricks, concrete blocks, and, of course, pieces of slate. And it's a very inexpensive blade, I don't know, $2 or $3, and you can have a blade the size to fit your saw. You need a straight edge, similar to this one right here, and I like to have sort of in reserve a hacksaw, and if you'll notice here, the hacksaw blade is not the standard type. This is a round hacksaw blade, and it's also of an abrasive material, so you can use this as a stone cutting or brick cutting blade. So have one of those handy, and perhaps a rule, and that's really about all you need to actually cut the slate and put the slate in place. Now,
and you need a talented assistant.
Well, you need a talented assistant like my wife. Now, when you buy the slate, it comes in 10 square feet to a box. And you can, on each one of the flaps of the box, you'll see a pattern. Now, the pieces of slate are all different sizes. So you follow this, and it's sort of like putting a jigsaw puzzle together when you install it on the floor. It tells you how many pieces you have of each kind of slate. All of the slate has already been milled and is 3/8 of an inch thick, so it's going to lay out level. But this is the pattern you follow, so you have to tear this tab off the box and keep it handy as you start out. Now, if you're going to just put in a simple slate foyer, something like 3 feet by 4 feet, you know about the area you want to put it in, so you can just start putting the slate on the floor, right on top of the mastic. But if you're going to do an entire room, it's always better when you install slate or vinyl tile or rubber tile to start in the center of the room. So in order to do that, you first must find the center of the room, right?
And how do you do that, Wally?
Well, you can buy a chalk line, and it's about $1, and what it is, it's a case like this. And when you pull out the tab on the end, you just get a piece of string coming out. Now, you pour chalk you pour chalk inside the can here, and the chalk comes off on the string. Now, let's show them how to do it.
Okay.
First, you go, if it's a square room, of course, you just simply run the chalk line from one corner to the other corner, like this, and put it down on the floor, have your wife hold the other end. And then you grab the string like this, lift it up, and look at that. You've left a mark right across. Now move over to the other corner, dear.
Okay.
And you do the same thing this way. Okay, let's lift it up. There's your other line. You can wind the string right back up. And, of course, where the two lines intersect right here is indeed the center of the floor. And that's where you're going to start out laying your pounding. Fist.
How much should you leave in between? About, what, a half an inch?
I like a pretty wide grout joint when I install slate. Some people will recommend 3/8 of an inch. Some will say a half. Some will say 5/8. I personally prefer about a 5/8 inch grout joint. But that's the way the slate goes on the floor. Let me put some more mastic down so you can run quite a bit more. The mastic is very sticky and gooey, and I don't know. I think I would prefer grouting slate than
it wouldn't
applying
hurt to
this
use
stuff.
rubber gloves when you do this, too.
That's right.
So you don't get sticky hands. But I forget, you know, you're the one who likes, as a child, likes to play with mud and doing things.
Well, Natalie, all boys like to do that.
Okay.
But this is about the size piece right here that you would use in the foyer of a home. About 3 by 4.
And what would this cost, Wally? How many square feet do you have here?
Well, it depends on where you live. You know, the biggest expense in slate, just put that down there. The biggest expense in slate is the freight. Now, let me see the pattern again. We'll lay the pattern right there, and here's a number 2. Now, this one will go just like that. All right, now the next thing we need is a number 6.
That's the big one. The large square.
A big one like that. See, installing it is very, very easy to do. Now, what do we have else? Number 6. Then we need a number 1.
Okay, that's the small one.
Which goes right here. And another big one. Which we'll put right here.
And they come in different colors. This grouping looks like is predominantly in the blues and the dark colors, but here you have...
Well, the package always says slate with red. And what you usually get are 2 pieces of red. And I guess the red is the most desirable color, so that's the one that you get least of. But see, it lays up very nicely. And it makes a beautiful and magnificent floor. Now, to cut it, I told you needed a saw like this. And I'll give you an example of how simple it is to cut. Here's your piece of slate, and I won't even show you, we won't even try to measure it, but I'll just give you the idea of what it's like to cut. Now, you have to cut it with an electric saw. It's noisy and it's dusty, so close the doors in the room you're working or take it outside before you cut. But this is how it works. Watch.
There.
It cuts it off very neatly. Now, in some instances, you have to notch out a little corner. That's where you use the hacksaw. Say you just want to cut an area about a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch to fit around a pipe. Now, as you can see, the hacksaw blade will indeed do it, but that's a hard way to go when you're working on a slate floor. Get an electric saw, do most of your cutting with an electric saw, and this part is easy. Now, the rest of it is just as simple. That's grouting it and then putting the stone sealer on the slate. We're going to show you how to do that in just a moment. Now, after you've installed the slate on the floor, you let it stand for what, about 24 hours, didn't you?
I think that's what we did. I think
But what you do...
That was the one right thing we did.
That was the one right thing when we installed it in our home. But what you do, you can take your hand and push on one of the tiles.
And as long
like
as it
this.
doesn't move.
And if the tile doesn't move, well, you know the mastic is set and it's permanently in place. Don't ever try to put the grout in too early, because you're going to get, as you crawl over the surface of the slate floor, you're going to move the various tiles around. So make sure the slate is set up good and tight.
Yeah. And make sure you don't get yourself into a corner and then have to get out by going over the slate. Plan
Which you
ahead.
did a couple of times.
Yeah, well, you did.
So we had some grout joints only 1/8 of an inch wide. Would you believe that?
Yeah.
But anyway, here's what you need. Get the grout, which your tile dealer or slate dealer will recommend to you. I prefer this type for many reasons. There are some types that you put together with epoxy that I found extremely difficult to get off. Maybe I didn't know enough about them, but I prefer just the regular, old-fashioned, standard slate grout. Then, the slate grout itself is just a gray powder that is sort of like a mortar. It has a large concentration of lime in it, so it isn't advisable to stick your bare hand into it because it'll burn a bit. Then you add water to it. And I like to use my hands. What do you think this is a throwback to
I don't know.
childhood?
I'm going to have to talk to a child psychologist about that, Wally.
But use your hand or a stick if you want to, and mix up the grout. You want it a fairly firm mixture. And I don't know, what, mashed potatoes, Natalie? About the same consistency
You
as
once
mashed
said
potatoes.
whipped cream, and it never looked like any whipped cream that I
Well, no,
made.
I think whipped cream is for ceramic tile.
Yeah.
For this type of thing, it ought to be about the consistency of mashed potatoes.
And don't be concerned that it looks so terribly dark, because when it dries, it will be much lighter in appearance.
Well, you can buy two kinds of grout, you know. You can buy the gray grout or you can buy the white grout for slate. I think the gray grout looks nicer, and I like it. But if you want more contrast in your floor, well, you can buy a white grout, and then the grout joints will show
I think
off a
the
little
white
more.
tends to get dirty.
All right, this is a little bit soupy, but, and Soupy would appreciate me mentioning his name, wouldn't he? Soupy Sales would enjoy that very much. But now we got this all mixed up. And do you want to do this? Why don't I let you grout?
Particularly. Oh,
No,
Wally.
come on. I'll put the grout out on the surface
Why
for
do
you.
I get the messy
And you can
jobs?
use the squeegee,
All right.
okay?
Oh, the squeegee? All right.
Yeah. Get over on the other side of me. Thank you, my dear. Now, what I do...
you're going to put it down.
Yeah, just put it out on the surface of the slate. Now, every time I do this, because of the other experience we had, I'm scared to death that it isn't going to come off. And if it doesn't come off, it is misery. I mean, it's just nothing but work.
If it doesn't come off, put down linoleum over it.
All right, now show them how to do it.
You go diagonally, as I recall.
That's right.
Yeah, it's
Take
been
the
a while.
squeegee diagonal. Now, a squeegee is a little thing that's about 8 inches wide.
But
it
is
has
that
a rubber
generic
blade on
term,
it.
Wally? Squeegee?
I don't know, but it's the same type of thing you use to wash windows, or they use as commercial window washing stuff. You know, the guys that go around and fill water up on a window and then take this thing and wipe it down. But move the squeegee back and forth over the surface of the slate, and this pushes the grout down into the cracks of the slate. And just keep right on going. Don't worry about it on the surface of the tile at this point.
As long
You
as
have
you
to
use
get
this
it.
kind of grout.
Yeah, but you have to, remember, you have to get it off. Now, see, these are things that you want to watch out for when you're, let me show everyone here.
Hole.
It's a little hole right here in the grout joint, and I know it must be very difficult to see, but there is a little air bubble there.
Okay.
So you have to look carefully.
Fill it in?
Fill it in, and then once again, pull the squeegee down over it. Now, it takes the grout, depending on the kind of mix you have, several hours before it's going to set up hard enough that would really give you a problem in taking it off of the surface. Now, what I like to do, after I've gone over it and gotten the grout in all the joints, take a sponge and get, I guess, a celluloid-type sponge, one like this, which is big and square. Dip it down in a pail of water, and then take this and wipe the face of the slate with it. Now, you have to be very, very careful and not let the sponge go down deeply into the grout joints, because you'll wipe the grout out of the joint. But rinse the sponge often, and then come right back again. Very gently. Wipe the excess grout off. Now, you're not going to get off. What you're going to try to do is as soon as you can. You're going to have to wait a couple of hours. It starts to set up just a little bit, grout joints, and then the rest of it will come off. One of the problems with doing it right now is the more you wipe across the surface of the slate, the more grout you pull out of the joints and spread over the surface of the tile. So you just might as well wipe off what you can as soon as you can, then wait a couple of hours and come back and wipe it again. And then look at it and wait a little longer and wipe it again. And eventually you get all the grout off the face of the tile. And I think it works pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
You're happy with your floor?
Very happy.
Okay, after you've grouted the floor, you've removed all of the grout from the face of the tile, you're ready for the next step. And your floor is going to look like this one right here. Now I grouted this in advance, and you can see this is a gray type grout as opposed to white, so you don't have the high contrast. But this is a wide grout joint, and I think it looks very good. Now, the next thing you want to do is put a stone sealer on it. The reason you put a stone sealer A variety of reasons. Your wife will never have to wax the floor.
That's the main reason.
You put 3 or 4 coats of this on, and once this is down, the slate is going to get a nice sheen to it, and and the kind of care is a damp mop sort of care, isn't it?
You just go over it with a damp mop. I think maybe if it's heavily traveled, maybe in a year you're going to have to put another coat of sealer, and they have something that you can take up the old sealer with, or what's left of it, and then you
put on a new one.
A couple more coats.
But this is the stone sealer, and they'll be happy to sell you a couple
It gives it a lovely
quarts.
shine.
And just pour it on. You can take a paintbrush that isn't really too good, and just sort of, or you can also take,
We have
lamb's
quite a
wool.
few in that category.
No, but the lamb's wool wax applicator works very good.
Yes.
Putting a stone sealer on too. You don't have to worry about it streaking. It's a clear, colorless.
Highly durable.
What is, honey?
This sealer, I say it's very durable. It's almost like a plastic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's, I guess, somewhat similar to that. It has plastic resins in it, I'm sure. But just brush it on. Be quite liberal with the first coat. And you ought to let this dry. It takes about 6 hours to dry. And then come back and give it another coat.
Yeah.
And ideally, it'd be nice if you could even give it a third coat.
As I recall, make sure it is dry, because if it's tacky and you put another coat on, then it's never going to dry properly.
And then how do you make sure it's dry, Natalie?
You go down, you put
That's
your
right.
finger, and if it doesn't stick,
you put
it's
your
dry.
finger on it, and if it
think I
feels
am
dry,
dumb?
it's dry. No, books always say that. Make sure it's dry. But they never say how you make sure it's dry.
I'm getting a little
How about
splotchy.
that? Isn't that bright and shiny and pretty?
Yeah.
And it'll dry almost that bright and shiny. And in a matter of, I would say, 3 or 4 hours work, it's going to take you a couple of days to finish, but a total work time of 3 or 4 hours, you can have a slate foyer in your home. I hope you picked up some tips today. Maybe we got rid of some of the fear of you tackling the job yourself, right?
I hope so.
And we'll be back with the tip of the day right after this word. Natalie, do you think putting on a slate floor is a man's job?
I certainly do, but I think it should be supervised by a woman.
No, but a woman could do it, don't you agree?
Well, we have friends, women, who have done it. I've never tackled it by myself, but then I'm so fortunate to have you.
Oh, that's the nicest thing you've ever said. But no, really, it is a job that almost anyone can do, man, woman, or reasonably aged child, because it isn't complicated. It takes a little common sense, and I don't know. I guess you really will have to want one.
Maybe you can follow directions.
You have to want one, and if you want one badly enough, you can do it. Now, tip of the day. Do you ever see anything like this? We're going to dim the lights so you can really get a good look at it. This is one of the things that my son made, and he calls it a psychedelic light. Now, look at that. Isn't that great?
That was lovely. It was a birthday present. We won't mention which one, Wally.
Well, that's right.
And he made it himself, and I think they're the nicest kind of presents.
Yeah, and kids are so big on things like this. They love to have this type of thing in their room, or you could put a fixture like this in the ceiling. And it's really a very simple thing to make. But now if we can bring the lights back up, I'll show you how you make something like this. For example, all this is a wooden shadow box that is about 6 inches deep, and I guess about 12 inches square. Now, he's taken a piece of plexiglass and put it over the face of the box.
And plexiglass, what is just a plastic?
This is a plastic material.
Opalescent.
And opalescent material. Now, inside, what he did, he took a piece of cardboard and just notched out and cut out designs in it, various and sundry looking things. And it's just a regular little piece of thin paper, poster board or something like that. And look what he has illuminating it. They're Christmas tree lights.
Yeah. The flashing type.
Yeah, there, I think, are 2 strands of Christmas tree lights, and the flasher is built right into the system. So you buy the lights just like this, mount them in the back of the box, put this thing over the top of it like that, and you have to focus it a little bit, get the paper the right distance away from the plexiglass. And presto, you have a psychedelic light. So it's something you could make and maybe please the kids, too, in their room. But that's a tip of the day, something easy to make and a very interesting psychedelic light.
And, my dear, here's next week's chore for you.
I would rather do this than anything I can think of.
Well, good. Then we'll do it, and I'll help you.
All right, join us, won't you, please, on Wally's Workshop.
This has been Wally's Workshop. Be sure to join us again next week for more home repair and remodeling ideas. And remember, you can do it if you try. Wally's Workshop is a Pan Media production. This is Johnny Olson speaking.
Oh, say